Alrighty. Alrighty. Hello? Okay. Alrighty. Just waiting for some people to come in. Dude, we're at the serious like point in the story, so like some serious stuff is going down. So I can roughly uh explain what happened uh for everybody that's coming in. So, but yeah, this chapter, some serious stuff's about to go down on chapter 5. At least is what I think, and what someone else told me. Some serious stuff's going to go down in this chapter. So basically, I have the witches part 1. So basically, what happened is, to summarize all the way from the beginning up until this point. Basically, a new transfer student comes in, uh, named I forgot his last name, his first name, but Sojiro, who basically lived in the mountains all of his life, ends up moving into the city, and then he has literally knows nothing about like any sort of modern life. He just lived in this very like remote area, and and then Awazaki Aoko's like really pissed, but helps him out anyway. Kind of get kind of accustomed to things, and Merlin's getting the image with the background. Yep, I saw Poggers, and you're also getting the shitty MC. That CE sucks. That MC actually sucks, but and then Condon and Alice, and then Alice is like one of her friends, like one of her technically her like mentor sort of, and they like talk and stuff like that. Nothing too major about like she's like studying magic under her, um, and then Sojiro's also working these part time jobs, in order to pay for his because he has to pay for his tuition. He has to pay for expenses, rent, stuff like that. It costs him a lot of money, so he has to spend a lot of his time. And Alco's aware of this and tries to make his life not nearly as bad, and stuff like that. And it's kind of funny, but how like oblivious he is, and everyone seems she for some reason she just doesn't like him. And then, but for some reason they've noticed like some weird activity going around, with like magecrafts and stuff, and so they're going around to check it out. And some people, and so Alice gets attacked by this, but she completely destroys the enemy, like which were puppets. Uh, and then and then Alco accompanies her to to this park, and then they get attacked by a puppet. But Alco is able to like basically burn the puppet to ashes. And then somebody ended up watching this from outside the barrier, and it turns out that person was it was Sojiro. You got kind of a hint out of it in chapter 2, but they really like it's confirmed in chapter 4 that Sojiro was the one that witnessed it, and now they have to figure out how to deal with him because, as you guys know, an outsider watching Magecraft is against one of the association rules, and so they have to figure out how to deal with him. Like, I started talking about killing him or imprisoning him forever, basically. So, Monka S. Sojiro walked under the cloudy sky, just like always. So now we're here. Now I pretty much explained everything. I tried my best to summarize everything up to this point. So his steps changed with the rusted, metallic sound as he climbed the stairs to his apartment. On the way, he happened to catch sight of a bike parked next to the wall around the building, and thought it would be nice to have one himself. Yeah, it would be nice to have a bike. But since he didn't have any excess funds and it wasn't a matter of life and death, he decided to endure without a little while longer. Arriving at his door, he cradled his shopping bag full of apples into one arm and pulled out his key. A bike really would be useful, but... He tilted his head in confusion. Why was he letting himself get swept away in useless thoughts when he had more important things to worry about, like what to make with all these apples he had been given? Oh, nice, he got some apples. Poggers, what a nice person. He set the bag down in the sink and switched on the lights. It was just past 10 o'clock. Exams were coming up, so he had to come home an hour earlier than usual. He'd come home an hour earlier than usual. Just as about he was to turn back to the kitchen and grab an apple to munch on, he noticed an envelope stuffed in the mail slot. There was no return address, or even a stamp. Inside was a letter. What's up, Chiron? Inside was a letter, which stated only the name of the sender, and the matter at hand. The contents was simple. I need to talk to you, so meet me here tonight. It's important, so I'll wait for you as long as it takes. Obviously, don't tell anybody about this. It's Alco. It was terse and written with a commanding hand. It was definitely Alco. The sender was Alco. Yep, and she had been kind enough to include a detailed map to the meeting place. She needs to talk to him because he's the one that snuck up on their encounter, and yeah, he's not allowed to look at magic. Wondering what this was all about, he left his apartment. Soon after, in the now empty room, the discarded envelope suddenly burst into flames and vanished as if it never existed at all. Monka S, you run like right now. In the later half of the 1980s, an economic boom appeared to be calming as a period of stable economic growth took hold. Modernization was progressing steadily, and the JR station symbolizing the new era was on the verge of completion. And another new symbol would emerge in Misaki's neighboring town of Yashirogi. The music's like really good in this movie, I'm not gonna lie. They took all of the funds for the VAs and just turned it all into music. Which, I mean, some parts I'm like, that was kind of like a weird thing, but I guess it's okay. The music does really sound really good. And the animations are pretty good too, so if they did reallocate the budget, that's fine. His name was Yashiroki, bred in Kitsuland. It was Misaki's largest source of bad debt. Oh, but what the fuck? An eyesore left behind by a spherical economic bubble. This town lacks dream and sophistication. 10 years ago, until that slogan, the owner of Tokitsu Bread Company and local celebrity Tokitsu Yorihiko, then 56 years old, started developing his land holdings in the outskirts of Yashirogi for the construction of what he hoped would become Misaki's premier recreational attraction. And in 1981, it opened. It had taken a full 3 years, but the short life of the amusement park, overflowing with dreams and humor, had finally begun. Its ground area totaled 350,000 square meters. Immediately after entering, visitors were greeted by a luxurious and splendid merry-go-round. A roller coaster encircled the entire park with like a writhing dragon. And the towering above it all was a Ferris wheel loaded with useless gimmicks that challenged the limits of engineering. It's perfect. Everything an amusement park needs is here. Mr. Yorihiko looked out fondly over his life's ambition. As if to bolster his confidence, it never saw greater success than it did at its opening. But they had dreadfully misjudged the balance of dreams and sophistication. Did someone die? The mascot Kitty-chan was overly plain and felt like a knockoff character. The inside of the park was littered with fresh baked bread stands. The labyrinth-like Hall of Mirrors was an esoteric, out-of-fashion relic of the early 80s. There were no dreams in Kittyland, only nightmarish humor. Kittyland faced harsh criticism from all of the major trade magazines, and attendance dropped. To make matters worse, there was even an incident in which a six-month-old child spoke to his mother and almost died. Jesus. 5 years after opening in 1986, between the ever-worsening business slump and the retirement of Mr. Yurihiko, who developed his final years to making Kitty-chan a breakout hit, the management of Kittyland grew difficult. And so, the short life of Mitsuki's solitary, hated amusement park finally came to an end. Well, it's a bit of a digression, but it's said that the self-styled partisan artist that designed Kitty-chan, Toki Julik, broke his brush in the morning when he heard of the park's closure. Damn. Now, the midnight Kittyland didn't show even an ounce of its former glory. Like a lonely doll shoved into the corner of a toy box and forgotten, the only light shone in from the still-living town nearby. So that's how it is. Sojiro closed the guidebook to Yashirogi he picked up on his way to the park. It was an almost unbelievable history, but he could at least accept that this place had seen better days. The main entrance was unlocked. When he came here before for work, the thick iron fence had been secured with rusty chains, but now the chains were gone and the gates were cracked open. Following the map drawn on the letter, he quickly squeezed his way inside. Still, I wonder what she wants. What's so important that it couldn't wait until morning? How did he not notice that the fucking letter is, like, burned? There's a fire? No way. Maybe, like, I guess if he closed the door, maybe, but, oh my god. Well, like, wouldn't, like, the table, like, catch on fire too, possibly? Unless it was, like, made out of metal? He grumbled uncharacteristically. It was probably because even he, who was ignorant of the world, knew that what he was doing was wrong. Trespassing in a ruin was still trespassing. Unlawful entry, robbery, theft, certainly they were all crimes and nothing to be proud of, but... Sorry, but cash is a little tight right now. I hope you can forgive me for letting myself in. Apparently that was the only thing bothering him. He clasped his hand together in offering before the statue of Kitty-chan, whose painted eyes had begun to melt pleasantly out of their sockets. Ew, disgusting. Then, leaving the mascot and his blazed tears behind him, he walked deeper into the park. Faded buildings. Rusted machinery. For the man-made inhabitants of this park, time stopped long ago. Even the ghosts had abandoned this ghost town. Damn, dude. It's like it was a fossilized dream. Last vestiges of paradise built by human hands then left behind by humans. A relic from an era of prosperity, where people's lives grew ever better and nobody feared for the future. His white breath trailed behind him as he walked. He wasn't afraid of this lonely place. It was loathing compared to the darkness of the mountains. Kittyland was unique for an amusement park in that it was built directly adjacent to a residential district. Though it was surrounded by woods in the end, those two were man-made. Like curtains on a window, they could only obscure the outside world, not make it disappear. If he hopped the fence and cut through the 20 or so meters of trees planted on the other side, he would find himself right back in the familiarity of town. So although this nightmare park was a place of dread for the people of the city, to him, it was no scarier than the hustle and bustle near the station. Is that it? Sojiro followed the directions west, out of the silent central plaza. His destination was a rugged, strikingly majestic castle, towering against the cloudy backdrop of night. The structure was conspicuously huge, even for this abandoned park. If the roller coaster and Ferris wheel were moving attractions, this one was completely static. It was one of the three great symbols of Sanctity Land, and in a way, the demonic building that had ushered in the destruction of this paradise. Generally, amusement park mazes were divided into two broad categories. The labyrinth, which befuddled visitors with its vastness, and the Hall of Mirrors, which confused them with tricks in light and optical illusions. The labyrinth allowed a large number of visitors to enjoy the feeling of being on an adventure, if only for a little while. In later years, it would fall out of favor as other, more exciting attractions appeared, but such was the fate of every fad. New things would always be replaced by newer things. True. The Hall of Mirrors, on the other hand, was a beloved classic. By effectively manipulating mirrors and light, visitors could have fun getting lost in a space no bigger than a school classroom. And because they didn't cost much, they had far more longevity than labyrinths. I mean, labyrinths was cool too. I don't understand why they're saying labyrinths are like they're not trendy. Like, they're cool. Even if they had no place in the coming century, the fact remained that both attractions were a hallmark of amusement parks. I guess, like, if you don't know, like, if you've never been to a labyrinth, like, if you go to the labyrinth once, I guess it's, like, fairly static, is what they meant. Like, it kind of means, like, it's not as fun once you do it already once. However, while they each had their merits, mixing them was unwise. Far from an enjoyable maze, the result would be a demonic realm of no return. Jesus. And naturally, that's exactly what Kissyland Mystery Tour Castle was. A full 5% of those who entered had to be rescued by the staff. Oh, Jesus. It was so bad that the staff had to come in to rescue them. The building, made to resemble a western castle, was roughly 100 meters long from front to back, and the interior was further divided into 3 stories. The labyrinth spanning 2 above-ground floors and a basement which entirely lined with mirrors, and was so vast and complex that even a veteran maze runner would need half an hour to escape. A single step inside meant descending into a spectrophobic hell for the next half of a day. Oh, Jesus. I mean, that would be a nightmare, like a huge labyrinth. Imagine someone getting, like, hurt or injured in there, and the staff trying to figure out where the fuck are they? That would be a disaster for management. And you could possibly sue. So, you know, you actually probably could get away with suing. There is light. Guess somebody must have turned on the power. Of course, that was all meaningless to him. He didn't even know what the Hall of Mirrors was, so the only thing that caught his interest was the fact that it wasn't totally dark. He checked the letter Aoko had given him one more time. It said she would be waiting for him in the first floor lobby of the Hall of Mirrors. This was definitely the right place. There was a faint light inside, shining through the open entrance. Brushing away any lingering doubts, he approached the Hall of Mirrors. The sounds of his footsteps lingered faintly over the brick road. Far from the clamor of the city, in this place that hadn't heard so much as the ticking of the clock in years, the winter night was deathly quiet. It was a silence so deep it almost seemed a crime to break it. He stopped abruptly at the building's entrance. By the way, Aozaki, what are you doing back there? He called out, turning toward the plaza he had just come from. It was the sound of somebody falling over, taking the garbage can they had been hiding behind down with them. What's up, Changeable? We're back with some more Mahoyo. I thought I'd be playing. I enjoy playing. It's starting to get really good. So we're on chapter 5. Some major stuff's about to go down in this chapter. The abandoned amusement park returned to its previous stillness for almost a minute. Then, with an air of resignation, a girl walked into view. Ow. His voice stopped in his throat. He'd never seen her in casual clothes before. This Aozaki Aoko, with her hair fluttering in the breeze, was completely different from the girl he knew. Run! Get your ass out of there, boy! You run! The way she carried herself emphasized her iron will. Her gaze was piercing. Her clear eyes literally seemed to glow with an unearthly light. The coldness of ice and a girl's strength. That incongruous combination was enough to cause Sojiro, who completely lacked any sense of impending crisis, to feel like something was wrong. If you had to describe it, it was like a Yuki Onna. A Yuki Onna is like a snow girl, by the way. Yuki Onna. Like it's like a girl that has like snow power, like ice powers. Literally Yuki being snow and Onna being woman, snow woman. So that attempts to explain it. Aozaki. Whoa. He stepped back unconsciously. His mind swirled with faint surprise and unease, and a foreboding premonition that exceeded them both. You boy, you run now! Run, get your ass out of there! Boy! You're about to get fucked up. Despite his confusion, he called out according to the manners of the city, but... Your face is kind of, are you upset or something? Without saying a word, she took a single step forward. Something about her in that moment stirred his fuzzy memories. That vague misgivings, the vague misgivings he held in his heart before solidifying into firm conviction. Though at the time, he'd only seen its back. In retrospect, the figure he saw in the park that night and the girl before him now, somehow... Oh no, he's putting them together. Don't they seem eerily alike? He gulped nervously. Oh shit. Oh shit, he's putting 2 and 2 together. Uh-oh. You wanna know what I was doing? It's exactly what it looked like. I was waiting for my prey to pass by. After you went in, I was gonna follow you behind you and cut off your escape. Oh shit. Oh, Monk S. She looked a little depressed as she explained herself. She hadn't expected it to be found out like this. You're an idiot. I see. Oh good, so this is the right place after all. Inwardly, he sighed in relief. Perhaps he had remarkable composure. Perhaps he merely couldn't grasp the situation he was in. Either way, Aoko described his sluggish reaction and continued speaking. You know, Shizuki, I got people I dislike, and people I hate, just like everyone else. But the strange thing is, that's not enough to become my enemy. Oh shit. Her icy eyes burned with a fiery emotion. She took another step forward. Sojiro's sense of foreboding grew stronger and stronger. No, more than that. He felt like killing intent. More than that. He felt killing intent? He stepped back. Somehow or another, the distance between them was staying at a constant 5 meters. For as long as I can remember, I never thought of somebody I disliked as an enemy. But on the flip side, there have been times that my enemy is someone I like. The reason is simple. She raised her right arm. Oh shit! Oh shit! So this is how we die? Dude, oh shit. Run, Shizuki! Get the fuck out of there! Yeah, I know. I saw. They're also getting the MC early. Run, Shizuki! Run, Sojiro. Get the fuck out. The light shimmering across her clothes was not an optical illusion. It's just a matter of course. Wait, what was... Okay. Kind of anticlimactic. Oh. The reason is simple. For me, anybody who agitates my emotions is an enemy. She raised her right... her raised right arm moved. No, there's no choices in this VN. Instantly. Whew! Oh shit. Oh shit. Oh shit. Some alarming hard to see thing whirs by to Sojiro's left, missing him by just 20 centimeters. Oh my god. Boy, you run right now. You take them legs and you run. Jesus. What the... Witnessing that blue light that fireball conjured out of nothing, he finally grasped the situation. Hey, wait a minute. I've seen that before. Completely ignoring his outburst. I shot wide. She grumbled to herself. Not only had the blue light left a fist-sized hole in the wall of the Hall of Meters, it was still smoldering loudly. It was probably more than capable of caving in and scorching a human head. Oh. Alice and see me miss from this close, I had to kill myself out of shame. But I guess you understand now. It's your second time after all. Sojiro rapidly backed away. Saying he didn't understand would be an understatement. He could barely even process what was going on. The only things he could see were the figure of the girl that had been a reliable student council president up until now, and the flashbacks to what he had witnessed at the park 2 days ago. He didn't have any experience with this kind of thing, though to be fair, most people who lived in the civilized country wouldn't. When faced with a lethal weapon that can kill with a simple squeeze of the finger, the human mind loses the ability to distinguish dream from reality, past from present, and of course good from evil. The more peaceful the life up to that point, the more pronounced the effect. All that remains is a single thought: I'm still alive. A solitary black dot on a blank sheet of paper. Looking neither backward nor forward, it becomes their entire existence. Those are the oh-so-normal thoughts of a human staring down the barrel of a gun. Don't bother begging for your life, it won't make a difference. But feel free to voice your grievances if you want. I won't deny a guy his last words. The fact that she said it wouldn't make a difference, meant she probably wouldn't actually listen to what he had to say. Not that it mattered. In a state of shock, Sojiro couldn't even remember how to speak. Run! Run! Only one thing was certain. Whatever her reasons, the girl in front of him wanted to kill him. Even lies have a limit. Tobimaru, you idiot. What do you mean there's no way the kind of creature exists? There's a monster like that sitting right in front of me. He almost said it out loud, but had a feeling that if he did, a second shot would come flying at him before he could finish. Cursing his friend had allowed his shock to progress into panic. However, recovery didn't stem from a cool head. Someday, without warning, I'll be killed by someone. It was totally ridiculous, of course. That's right, murders happen in the city. It's normal to be killed if you break the rules. That's what I thought. But for Sojiro, who was not yet used to the way of life here, it seemed all too believable. Apparently the reality of being murdered by a classmate wasn't so astonishing to him. What the fuck? He could accept things like that happened in a society where people killed each other and didn't question the chain of events that led to this violent situation at all. So the only thing he couldn't wrap his hand around had been that fire Aoko conjured. He gulped down the saliva pooling in his mouth. It was clearly the reaction of a victim paralyzed with fear. That's how it is. You finally understand, right? There's nothing else to say, so I'm going to have to ask you to die now. I could go on and on about how magecraft is something that must be hidden, but honestly that has nothing to do with you. Just consider yourself unlucky. The only thing that matters is that I'm going to kill you. Whew. Once again, Aoko raised her right arm. A mechanical hum filled the air, and blue lights shimmered beneath her clothes. Sojiro couldn't help but notice that she was taking longer than before. That which could only mean one thing: the next shot would be even stronger than the one burning a hole in the wall behind him. His panic intensified. No, wait. Whether or not she's gonna get rid of me, whether she's the monster from that night, whether the city is complicated, that's not the issue here. His thoughts were confused. His heart was pounding. There was no time to be standing still. This was no time to be standing still. He wasn't even sure if the girl before him was human. But setting that aside, even if he accepted everything that was going on, if he really thought about it, please stop. Killing is wrong. It might be the rules of the city, but he still didn't want to die. Oh shit. You think I don't know that? Hey, wait. His astoundingly oblivious comment had managed to precisely invoke her wrath. Whoops. That's not what you say, you boy. Dumbass. Oh. Oh no. Oh no. Yee. Oh, finally you run. What? Under fire from successive blue shots. He bolted in the darkness behind him into the Hall of Mirrors. What the heck was that? He ran for his life through the seemingly endless passage. The reason he was breathing so hard after a mere 2 meters of all-out sprinting was due to his surprise at that unknown phenomenon which exceeds the first attack, and the very real feeling that he would be dead right now if he had jumped back even a second later. He couldn't stop if he wanted to. Merciless footsteps pressured him from behind. But I'm saved. If it's here, then... Clutching at that faint hope, he ran with all of his might. It was 20 meters from the entrance of the Hall of Mirrors, the lobby through a long, narrow passage. If you can get in there, there were a number of places he could hide. Yes, the passage opened up in a wide open space. He made it to the first floor lobby. From here, he had 3 options. 1, go downstairs into the basement. 2, enter the maze on the first floor. 3, go upstairs to the second floor. Thinking about that right now, it didn't particularly matter which one he chose. He safely ran to the maze on the first floor, but... Ow. By the way, this visual novel has no, like, options, no choices, so there's no bad endings. For better or worse. Ow. He smashed face first into the transparent barrier. Into a transparent... A mirror? That's right, it's annoying but fair. Neither the pursuer or pursued have an advantage here. No, that's not true. She has... I'm pretty sure that's an actual barrier she put in place. He heard an almost cheerful voice behind him, but there was no need to turn around. Alco's slow advancing form was reflected in the mirror he had run into. Oh, I see her. Oh shit, she's coming. Oh, and I blockaded the first floor exit, physically, not magically. And of course, calling it a blockade may be giving it too much credit. It's more like rubble, collapsed earth. I guess it doesn't really matter. The important thing is if you go near it, it'll fall down on your head. You better keep your distance if you don't want to be buried alive. Anxious from the approaching footsteps, he felt his way toward the wall. His eyes were set on the stairway to the second floor. He hadn't really understood what she was talking about, but he had at least been able to gather that the first floor was no good. Well, that would be convenient for me, though. It's a lot easier to clean things up officially after an accidental death. The thing behind him was unidentifiable. With light, jesting words, she slowly raised her right arm. An incongruous, mysterious pattern was engraved on her body, visible even through her clothes. It was as if the blood vessels under her skin were circulating something. Inhuman? Was he disgusted? Appalled? Whatever the reason, he stopped, just for a moment. Her pursuer ignored his gaze. Oh, this? Usually I conceal it with ointment, but today is special. It's my family crest. Think of it as proof that I'm a magus. Oh, she did inherit the crest, then. From the family. Because her sister... Okay, so she's actually the younger sister. Her older sister, well, we don't know her name, quote-unquote, but we obviously know who it is, ended up moving. And so she ended up, as you guys know, only the oldest sibling is usually the one that inherits, is the one that's only taught magecraft. The problem is that the older sister kind of left, and so basically the only heir now is Alco, and so they basically had to teach her everything. They wanted to teach her everything, and so they gave her the crest. She inherited the crest. It's my family crest. Think of it as proof that I'm a magus. This light is the origin of Snap, the bullet from before. I'm feeling good today, and if there's one thing I'm confident, it's my ability to use magical energy efficiently, so yeah. I'd say if I can do it about 30 more times, then rapid fire barrage, that rapid fire barrage I mean. She must have been in high spirits because her tone was horribly friendly. Though what she was actually saying was just plain horrible. I didn't really follow any of that, Aozaki. The novel, it's full in English. No, about 8.5 chapters are in up to chapter 8.5 is fully English though. Like a little bit over, like about 75% of the game, I think, or a little bit over half. I know that. Somewhere between half and 75%. So we're currently on chapter 5. chapter 5 is apparently really long from someone told me. So you don't get it. I'm saying I have 30 shots left. If you can run away until I'm out, you win. For today, anyway. For today, huh? Dude, if this was Alice going after him, he would be dead. But luckily it's Aoko, so he's pretty much safe right now. Or there's Samara again. For today, huh? I wonder if that means I'm gonna have to go through this again tomorrow too. He frowned. I mean, she can't really kill him if he's out in the open, so. And Aoko frowned as well. Even though he was panicking, he wasn't showing his true sense of crisis. It was obvious he couldn't understand what was happening. Enough talk, your respite is over. If you feel you haven't abused me enough, well, there's not enough time in the world for that. This is as good a place to stop as any. Apparently she had prepared this relaxed speech on purpose. Not so he could fruitlessly beg for his life, but to give him time to curse his killer. This was her sense of justice at work, though. Though this time, at least, her rambling hadn't had the intended effect. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say. Let's begin the hunt, shall we? With a voice bereft of emotion, she stared cruelly at her prey. And for Sojiro, the reality that he would be killed here finally sank in. Dude, Sojiro, just yeet her. Fucking slap her, bitch ass. With the ghost-like silence, it stole... is my mouse visible, by the way? I can't really tell. Oh yeah, it is kind of visible. Yeah. Do you guys think I should hide the mouse, or do you guys don't really mind if I have the mouse? Because I can hide it. I'll hide it, I won't capture the cursor. There we go. With ghost-like silence, it stole into the remnants of the dream that hadn't seen visitors in ages. I don't really mind. Okay. The windless night was devoid of life. Nevertheless, something clasped its hands and smiled a smile of satisfaction at the noise echoing in the distance. Its delicate folded form was like a budding tulip. The gestures of this artificial flower were reflected in the cloudy mirror of the gate attendant's office, next to which hung an old, rusted bulletin board. Today's visitors, 2. Today's XXXX. Somebody had vandalized the weathered bulletin board with a single cruel graffiti. Today's XXX was scribbled out and replaced with today's fatal accidents. Standing in front of that long, disused record chart, it thought for a moment, then altered the numbers. Today's visitors, 3. Today's fatal accidents, 1. Oh shit. Oh shit, is Alice coming in? If Alice is coming in, he's fucked. Sojiro's fucked if it's Alice. After making the alterations with its forefinger, a smile bloomed on its face. Then it turned and started to walk toward the noise that began echoing from the hall of mirrors like a rhapsody 10 minutes prior. I don't think it's Alice, though. I actually don't think it's Alice, because it would have been obvious. I don't think it's Alice. And still, as before, the night was devoid of life. This battle was a foregone conclusion. Even if Sojiro had been the luckiest man in the world, he never had any chance of escaping. But where did calculations end and coincidence begin? Even Aoko, who planned this, couldn't tell. There were only 3 things she could say for sure. First, this had taken longer than she anticipated. Second, his responses exceeded her expectations. And third, choosing the Hall of Mirrors had been a mistake. Yeah, you idiot. Or more precisely, while the actual layout of the Hall of Mirrors made for a perfect hunting ground, seeing her own incompetence reflected back at her everywhere she looked was just a little irritating. Lol. Keck W, dude. Dude, I like the soundtrack, dude. Oh, Jesus. What? The instant Aoko's arm glowed, Sojo escaped into the stairway. We run! The rapid blue strobe light flashed in the room behind him, as his pursuer calmly moved to follow after her desperately fleeing prey. Oh Jesus, that's fucked up. She's loading the bullets! Monka S. Just as planned. Kei Kakudori. If you didn't go that way, the feast I prepared wouldn't go to waste. Would go to waste. In contrast to Sojo, Aoko ascended the stairs at a brisk walk. The reason she didn't run was to keep the distance between them constant. Since she lacked confidence in her accuracy, the worst possible situation would be if she charged at her with the intent of going down fighting. As long as the range between them was roughly 10 meters, there was no problem. In the time it would take him to close the gap, she could fire off 10 shots, 4 of which would likely hit. But a positional... Dude, like, imagine if Rin actually did this. Like, literally went to Shiro. Instead of saving Shiro, she would literally, like, hunt him down and try to kill him. Like, this is actually fucking scary. Like Shiro, if you're Shiro, you're like, get the fuck out, dude. You run. Like, imagine if not only, he was hunted down by Ku, but he was also hunted down by Rin. But a positional relationship like the one they had before was slightly disadvantageous for her. At that distance, in that large room, there was a possibility, however slight, that he could make use of the extra space to close in to melee range and turn this into a bare-handed fight. Right now, her greatest weapon was the bullets fired from her right arm. In order to make the best use of that advantage, she needed to keep her distance. If she approached him, it would only be after he was thoroughly exhausted and had given up. But she was already dead by the time she knew. Yeah, but she wouldn't save him then. She'd be like, oh, that's what you get, bitch. Like, she wouldn't actually go through the effort to save him. I think the only reason she did do it, kind of, was because she knew that he had like some sort of a good relationship with Sakura. So I guess, but technically that should be like breaking the rules. But she didn't know that he was also technically a Magus, but not to the extent that she was, obviously. Would she shoot him through his foot, his back, or would his mind be broken by this maze? Whatever the case, once he was wounded and could no longer flee, the hunt would come to an end. The game's kind of laggy on my end. She isn't a bad choice to be killed by. Huh. Sergio, on the other hand, was fighting back the urge to scream. There was no way he could look for an exit when just running straight ahead was difficult. Ow. The corridor seemed to stretch out into the distance, but it was merely a trick of the mirrors. In a fluster, he managed to head right and... Ow. Ugh, again? No spoilery, no, Hime. Is Aoto Hime like for each of the Type Moon visual novels? Or no. I was thinking no. I was thinking like Aoko, and I was thinking like 2 for Feito, and then Hime from Tsukihime. But nah, it's totally something totally unique. Holding his forehead, he reached out his left arm, confirmed there was no wall, and... Oh! Jesus. He dove into the corridor on his left, barely dodging a pair of bullets. Hastened by the sound of approaching footsteps, he ran without thinking. The scorching smell wafted from behind his head. He literally escaped by a hair. He was certainly lucky. Or maybe he was extraordinarily unlucky. A lucky person wouldn't be in a situation like this in the first place. Wait, what? A lucky person would be in a situation like this in the first place. It seemed the second floor of the Hall of Mirrors was shaped like an enormous whirlpool. Starting at the outer perimeter, it was one left turn after another. And then waiting in the center of it was all was a dead end. The more he ran, the more he cornered himself. He was trapped in a spiral guillotine. His swallowed screams threatened to merge as petulant grumbling. No matter what he did, he was going to die here. Even if he struggled his hardest, all it would extend to this incomprehensible situation a few more seconds, a few more minutes. Whew. But he ran. No matter how many mirrored walls he smashed into, he ran. Even as stars danced in his eyes and blood poured from his head, he ran. A new pain assailed him from every few seconds. The more he recklessly ran, the more violently he smashed into the invisible walls. His body had already memorized his connection between running and pain and begged him to slow down. As a result, his breathing was ragged from a mere 60-meter sprint. To begin with, this was crazy no matter how he thought about it. No matter the circumstances, it was just too absurd. Surely if he turned around, he would find Alka waiting to apologize for taking a bad joke too far. His mind blanked out, his body fed up with repeated collisions, was ready to seize any excuse to stop. Whew. A chill. Like a cold grip around his neck, he felt the touch of death. It was a sensation he knew all too well. After all, since coming to the city, he hadn't had just one or two brushes with death. From the very point of someone who knew nothing of the city's rules, there wasn't much difference between the current situation and, say, crossing a busy road or navigating a crowded train platform during rush hour. It wasn't like he was a newborn infant yet to experience life or fear. It was just that the knowledge that shaped his personality had one day been suddenly thrust into an entirely alien cultural sphere. The things that were natural to the people of the city, including the societal systems that ensured safety, were all unknown dangers to him. Damn, dude. So yes, he was used to this feeling. If he were to speak honestly, there were things he didn't like too. Unnecessary things. The world was overflowing with worthless things, all of them dangerous. To him, even the daily goods that lined the shelves in convenience stores were extraordinary tools. As civilization raised people's standards, it dulled their senses for danger. The way the city, which valued wealth and convenience above all else, was toxic to him, who was raised in the country. And unfortunately, he didn't have the luxury of simply submitting to convenience of the city when an accident that nobody wished for could arise easily and abruptly from just misunderstanding how to use them. It made him uneasy. Why? Why did he end up here? Oh. It was too ironic. His hitherto unnoticed feelings, to think they would reveal themselves only now at death's door. That's right, unforeseen things were nothing new. Almost dying was nothing special. Safety was something acquired as compensation for payment. As long as people were alive, adversity was always waiting. Like a street lamp at night, it was only natural for the light to vanish with the dawn. The unknown weapon being fired at him without mercy brought back memories of the figure that had reduced to cinders by that blue fire 2 nights ago. Somehow he thought it seemed like a horse being led around by a carrot. At any rate, he lifted his head and continued running through the maze. But to what end? Though the pain in his heart was real, It didn't feel that way at all. The night sky, visible through the skylight, awash in grimy ultramarine, was totally different from the one he knew. Huh. Abruptly, he relaxed his guard and laughed in despair. It felt like something important had broken inside him. Because nothing really mattered to begin with. The only reason his legs kept moving anyway was because of Aoko's reflection. He dashed through the maze of mirrors like a mouse being chased by a cat. Then after just 4 minutes, that strange, unreal tension ended. The 9th barrage discharged right next to him. It exploded the instant it hit the wall, sending him flying across the corridor. It was without a doubt the closest he had ever come to death. Ouch! He collapsed to the floor with a groan. Tiny needles of pain stabbed into his back. Luckily, there wasn't any blood. It seemed he managed to escape serious injury. However, his body stubbornly refused to move. It wasn't like he was physically or mentally exhausted. Nor was his pain bad enough to prevent him from getting up. It's just that when he fell down, he happened to catch sight of the dark night sky through a window on the ceiling, and immature selfish grief passed through his mind. Oh, how unsightly. This was the last thing he'd ever see. His ragged breaths gradually regained their composure. To put it simply, he had given up on escaping both from the footsteps of his pursuer and perhaps from the bigger issue beneath it all. Well, maybe if it's Aosaki being killed is alright. Feeling that the human called Shizuki Sojiro should never feel leaked out. Incidentally, it may seem unbelievable, but it was the only mistake he'd ever made. He looked up at the night sky absent-mindedly and listened to the approaching footsteps. Are you done running? Aoko's voice was closer than ever. Perhaps a sensation that it was finally over, she approached her fallen prey. Sojiro finally gazed silently at the murderer before him. Her expression was impossible to make out in the darkness of this mirrored corridor. Well, it's fine if you don't respond. But you're really screwed up, you know that? Normally you'd ask why I'm trying to kill you or something. She spoke without concealing her face in the shadows. While concealing her face in the shadows. Whoops. His eyes widened. Now that she mentioned it, that would have been a perfectly natural question. Though he had a vague notion that he was being killed for finding out some secret, wanting to know more was human nature. Yeah, that's true. He agreed with a sigh. His face was full of resignation, mixed with a lonely longing. He thought for a moment, then. But you don't need to say anything. I don't want to hear it. His voice was quiet and mature. Oh, that's my email. Don't mind me. It was an all too dazzling answer. Fine. Then I'm going to kill you now. You're not scared of dying? Of course, I'm scared. It will probably hurt a lot. Aoko's face clouded at his pouty objection. Even in this situation, he was sincere with his feelings. Oh yeah, that's scary, alright. I'd be scared too. But you'll just have to deal with it. If you want to call me a bastard, that's fine. Right now, you wouldn't be wrong. I'm the same as you in that sense. I'm not bounded by normal morality. That's why I can even kill if I have to. Sojiro's fingers twitched at her indifference. It was as if his body, which had given up on everything, was trying to say it couldn't ignore what she just said. Killing is wrong. I told you already. I know that. She raised her right arm. The light from the crest lit up her face. Of course, it was the same as always. There was no sadness there, no joy. She was an ordinary girl who had thrown away her emotions. How on earth could she expect him to just deal with that? For Sojiro, who knew the normal Aoko, it was more painful than any expression she could have made. Sorry, but can I ask you something first? What is it? If you're thinking about running again, I'll have to politely decline. His face slackened and breathed a sigh of relief. So the pain he had seen was just a misunderstanding in the end. Aoko was Aoko. He smiled, happy to be wrong. Though, of course, anybody else who saw him would definitely get the wrong idea. I was too naive thinking I'd hear out your last words. Or are you really okay leaving behind nothing but that smirk? No, that's not it. It's just, isn't your friend over there? Isn't that your friend over there? He pointed somewhere behind her. Huh? What a played out gag. She felt like this was the part where she was supposed to smack him on the head with a fan. Then again, he seemed completely serious and not like this guy would know about that sort of routine in the first place. What are you talking about? Had she been swayed by his sincerity? Almost inadvertently, Alko turned to look at where she was pointing. There. Creaking. Oh, Monka S. Actual Monka S. With a joyful wooden groan, it made its ominous appearance in this inorganic maze. A puppet? A strange humanoid finger loomed silently in the darkness. For a fleeting moment, its sincere grace and beautiful craftsmanship, apparent even from a distance, bleached away the enormity of it all. Abnormality. Oh, that's creepy. Oh, Monka S. Growing, twisting, stretching. It was so bizarre that Akko simply froze up. The thought of dodging didn't even cross her mind. Humans are blessed with both intellect and knowledge. But for that very reason, was confronted with something they had never encountered before, they... Oh! By the way, this is the... If you guys recognize this, like, sign, it's actually the same symbol for, a stun. Like, watch. Look. It's actually the inspiration for the Gander. Like a stun, icon and the skill. This is the inspiration. See? It's the same thing. It's actually the same. This is where it came from. So this game came out before FGO, so like 2014, and FGO came out 2015, I think. She cried out in pain. The demonic attack launched by the thing at the end of the corridor had crossed the 10-meter gap between them as if it was nothing but a thrust into her back with blinding speed and precision. Ugh. An anguished whimper threatened to escape her lips as she smashed into the wall, but she choked it down. At the same time, the thing attacked her quickly began retracting its arm. Aozaki! Sojiro was on his feet on an instant. He rushed over to Aoko, who was on the floor coughing, and used all his strength to help her to her feet. He was taken aback by how light she was. In his head, she had become a larger-than-life figure. When she touched her, he expected to feel an unmistakable strength exceeding his own. But in reality, she was just a normal girl. She couldn't have weighed more than 50 kilograms. I can't tell if that's light or not. There's your nudity, Kappa. Meanwhile, what sort of mechanism was clattering as... some sort of mechanism was clattering as the thing reeled in its hyper-articulated 10-meter arm, returning it to its original shape and size. Are you okay? Stop it. How can you be making that face right now? That kind of face right now. Grumbling, she shook off his hand. Her knees gave out almost immediately, but he caught her before she could fall to the floor. Hey, take it easy. So is that someone you know? He was staring at the eerily motionless figure at the other end of the corridor, which was almost done retracting his arm. Yeah, it's a friend of the one I fought before. She ran her fingers over her back as she answered. Irk. As soon as she did, searing pain flared through his spine. Even though it hurts this much, it's just a bruise. But it was almost an almost flawless sneak attack. Maybe it can't land a fatal hit from that distance. No, that can't be it. There must be something I'm missing. She caught her breath while assessing the damage to her back. Before long, the pain faded and her breathing returned to normal. For now, at least, her motor functions were unaffected. That said, the truly serious damage was... Aozaki, look! Shut up, I know. The blue light burned in the darkness. She gathered the magical energy generated by her breathing into her right arm. The magical energy was the fuel, and the formula was the ignition device. For Aoko, this was merely a replay of 2 nights ago. When the puppet extended its arm again, she would run the formula as fast as she could and snap out a bullet. It was a 10-meter melee battle, a cross-counter between life and death. But as long as she could secure at least a 2-second opening, she could make it. It moved. With its head down, its expression was unreadable. Range and darkness masked its age. To Aoko and Sujiro, the puppet was no different from a faceless wraith. It let out a screeching... I guess this is what I like to type those dolls in FGO. It let out a creaking sound and raised its left arm. Were its joints rusted? Its movements were somehow sluggish. The right arm it extended earlier hung limply at its side. From behind its long hair, it almost seemed like it was smiling. This time is different from before. It's coming from its left. Shizuki, move! She tackled Sujiro and brandished her right arm. At the same time, the puppet extended its left. The timing was perfect. In the span of a second, her snap hit the puppet's arm, diverting the trajectory and exploding into its body. Yes, that's what would have happened if the all-important formula had activated. Oh no. Whew. She barely managed to dodge. The only reason she was able to avoid the attack despite her magecraft failing was intuition. So that's what you did. She clenched her teeth in frustration. Her thoughts raced. Should she charge? Should she flee? There was one arm remaining. It could take some time for the other to rewind. Needless to say, this was her best chance if she was going to act. It had to be now. As long as she had only had to worry about the right arm, she would be able to just barely dodge it again, close the distance and... I am alive in slumber. I am rotting alone in the ground. Today is the day I died and was born. Now I am coming to see you. What the fuck? That's fucked up. Some French line. A crackling sound echoed through the corridor. The vaguely poetic whispering contained an ember of magical energy strong enough to be perceived by a magus. Though the song-like verse itself was Latin, it was dotted with the rhymes of Gander. Originally, they were words meant for cursing an object of hatred. However, mea anima immortalitas aume... Yeah, this is definitely like Latin, I think. Though my life is unending, my future has been killed. I am a ghost. The very definition of my existence is uncertain. I both hate you and adore you. Let us meet in a dream. The puppet was aiming them at itself. Curses gave birth to curses. The victim of a curse inevitably curses their assailant, creating a vicious cycle of negativity. The puppet's incantation made use of that principle. However, it was a one-man show to the end. An unprecedented power source akin to the self-intoxication. That was almost unbelievable. It had turned the cycle of curses into a perpetual motion device. What the hell? Isn't that a little much? She abandoned the idea of mounting an all-out resistance on the spot. Instead of countering-attacking, she turned tail and ran as fast as she could. What are you just standing around for? Come on! Grabbing the hold of Sojiro's hand, she fled deeper into the land of mirrors. Behind them, the crackling voice continued. Forsaken by those around me, we were all of us guilty. We are sinners. Welcome to my home. Sink into death. Become dust and whispers. Gouge out my missing heart. I will kill you. Jesus. Jesus, that's scary. That's Monka S. Aoko ran through the mirrored corridor, doing her best to endure the pain in her back. Sojiro, who was being dragged along by his hand, followed close behind. Are you hurt, Aozaki? Nah, there's just some numbness along my spine. My organs are fine, though. I don't think there's any internal bleeding. She neglected to mention her circuits were shredded, but grumbled about it inwardly. Unlike Sojiro, she navigated the maze without crashing into anything. It wasn't because of her eyesight, but because she had memorized the layout of the building in advance. How can you be so sure? It's my own body. Managing it is the very basics of the basics. She answered his nervous questions with an air of boredom. The corridor was gradually growing shorter with every left turn. Unlike just a little while ago, they had been able to run straight ahead for 30 meters at a stretch, but now they were hitting the next corner in 15 meters or so. They would be hitting that. So is it the same person from... Probably. I think it's the same type at least. Though anybody could use such valuable automata disposably must be ridiculously wealthy. His brow furrowed. He was happy Aoko was answering his questions, but she was using a lot of strange words. Aozaki, stop. This is far enough. We're a whole corner ahead. Let's rest a little. He was obviously still worried about her injuries, but she shook her head. Again, a long-range opponent like that, a lead of just one quarter is meaningless. We need to put at least two before us where we can start to breathe easy. Sojiro nodded, then that made sense. Then setting that aside, why did you take me with you? You idiots, because I didn't want to let you get away. She glared sullenly at her prey. It was like he had already forgotten she was trying to kill him. They rounded yet another corridor, and finally their feet began to slow. Aoko touched her hand to her back while she caught her breath. Though she had insisted she was fine earlier, apparently that was just bravado. Somehow even the normal oblivious Sojiro could tell. He stood behind her, arms crossed, and used this chance to try to puzzle out the situation in his own way. First, he was nearly killed by Aozaki Aoko. Though he was saved at the last second, the person who interfered was the bizarre, stretchy-armed human Aoko had burned 2 nights ago. He hadn't gotten a good look, but he was pretty sure she was a girl. Then Aozaki had suffered some kind of injury to her back from the girl's attack and staged a temporary retreat. And though she had grabbed his hand and brought him along, she said it was just to keep him from escaping. In short... Wait, you're still planning on killing me? Of course, I could fight off 2 of those things and still have more than enough left over for you. Despite her ruthless reply, even an untrained eye could see she was straining herself. She had no right to be so optimistic. The damage to her body wasn't something she could ignore. The fury burning in her eyes rejected that. My circuits are shorting out all over the place, which means the right arm must jam the activation of the formula by forcing it across. Though by all rights she should be trembling in fear right now, her fist was quivering with rage. Formula jamming was a technique that was only effective against total beginners. Oh, damn. She's just pissed because, like, since she's such a newbie, she got screwed over by that. Against someone like her roommate, the instant the arm made contact, it should have rebounded and burned up the attacker's circuits instead. Connecting your circuits to another magus like that was the same as serving up your own heart on a platter. In a battle between superior magi, it'd be completely useless. And yet the enemy was equipped with such a superfluous function. Combined with the attacks throughout the administered land of Misaki that lasted these last few weeks, there was only one conclusion. The enemy was showing their evaluation of the girl who had only officially stepped forward as a magus just 2 days prior. In short, they were looking down on her. They might be an enemy, but they're nothing if not meticulous. Though she was still angry, her unsettled emotions began to cool. Rather than a 17-year-old girl, she had the face of a far-sighted hunter. Somehow it seemed like you're taking this more seriously than when you were hunting me. Well, of course, I was just toying with you back then. She didn't know if you should be happy or sad. There's so much I don't understand. I don't even know where to start. But there is one thing I want to ask. Akiko stared straight ahead without acknowledging him. His silence was heavy. Shadows cloyed at him like thread. Still, even being treated like nothing, Sojo didn't back down. Will you kill her too, Aozaki? A hush fell over them, as if it had been dragged out over darkness itself. The darkness itself. No reply. The only sound in the dim corridor was their breathing. The boy who had asked of Sin and the witch who ignored him. After several frozen seconds. That's like your catchphrase, isn't it? She muttered without inflection. It wasn't clear if her sigh was one of resignation or contempt. A catch what now? I was talking to myself, just forget about it. But you should know that that thing isn't human. It may seem unbelievable, but it's a puppet that moves by its own will, both this one and the one from before. Sojo nodded frankly. Far from doubting her story, he seemed to have accepted it wholeheartedly. I can't help but feel you're taking this a little too well. Oh, not at all. It's just that I'm so lost right now, I've decided not to think too hard about any of it. Though, frankly, the puppet is nothing special. That puppet is nothing special. Wait, you're saying you actually seen an autonomous puppet before? What do you mean? Aren't all puppets like that in the city? Monka S. What? She just barely restrained an impulse to collapse to her knees. So that's what it was. This godlike idiot with that sort of guy. This dude. As a transfer student from deep in the mountains, he was like a naturally protected species. His outlandish lack of common sense meant that to him, everything he saw was bizarre. And the lumps of iron called cars, if the lumps of iron called cars moved, it wouldn't be strange for him to think that puppets moved too. Then perhaps, what he saw 2 nights ago hadn't been anything special at all. Maybe he thought it was just part of the normal scenery of the city, maybe not even worth talking about. You win. Really, I'm impressed you made it this far. I'd like to get a look into your head someday. No wonder there was something off about the way you reacted when I attacked you. Normally you'd call me a ghost or a monster, but I guess for you it's just another thing that exists, huh? Somehow I felt like the idiot here. Just for a moment the tension drained out of her face. Right? If that was the case, there might have been a way to resolve this peacefully without anybody getting hurt. But it was already too late. If life do-overs did not exist, they must not exist. Oh shit. Randy Rules, thanks for the follow. The situation had spiraled out of control over a trivial mistake and selfish assumptions, but now that things had come this far, she had no choice but to protect her secret with her own hands. Even if there had been another ideal option, that door was long shut. In the end, human relationships were spun around mutual misconceptions. A beautiful tapestry woven from the misthreaded intentions. Damn. And so their brief respite drew to a close. Aozaki Aoko and Shizuki Sojiro. The first idle conversation they had since the day they met ended, not by their own feelings, but the intrusion of rasping whispers from around the corner. Nobody remembers my funeral. Nobody is left to mourn me. From the beginning, we were all mistaken. Life is naught but pain. Somebody save me. Though it was not yet directly visible, its image was reflected in the parallel mirrors. Time to wrap this up. It's almost close enough to... Huh? Oh shit. The light was bloody. It was a bloody, grudge-filled red, quite unlike Aoko's vivid blue. Gander shots. Light flashed faster than any arm. But in the instant, she was able to clearly confirm the enemy's form. Her cooled emotions had also reignited. You're such a damn pest. Channeling all of her pent-up anger and rage, she brandished her right arm. The fog that appeared was not magecraft, but a barrier of raw magical energy. It was like using 3 whole buckets of gasoline to build a wall to reduce the power of a single incoming arrow. Of course, the puppet's arm would have pierced through it like if it was nothing. The only reason it worked was precisely because the attack was a curse without true form. It was a colossal waste of magical energy. Right now, she had no way to protect herself. The problem was she was the only one protected. Sojiro held his hand over his mouth. Though the curse had weakened enough that she didn't even feel it, it was still too much for someone who wasn't even a magus. As if to understood that, the puppet shifted its gaze from Aoko to the unexpected human behind her. Stop it, he's not involved in this. Enraged, she brandished her right arm again. Blue phosphorescence, I don't know how to pronounce that word, became a barrier to defend against the Gander for another scant few seconds. Seizing the opportunity, the puppet aimed its right arm at Aoko's face just as she formed the wall, and looks like I'm part of this after all, so let's get out of here. Just like that, Sojiro scooped her up in his arms before the deadly rocket could fire. Huh? Where he found the strength was a mystery, but he turned out his back on the puppet and took off running. His movements were like a nimble sprinter, or a deer leaping from rock to rock in the mountains. Rounding 2 corners, and ignoring Aoko's clear displeasure, he finally stopped and set her down close to the center of the 2nd floor. Alright, you should be able to rest a little here. He panted, trying to catch his breath. No matter how light she was, he had to run all this way with another person in his arms. Aoko looked up at him in confusion. If you had all this sort of stamina, then why? It didn't make any sense. If he was strong enough to carry her now, then he should have been able to stand up again and escape when she had him cornered earlier. Oh, it's because back then I had given up. He didn't sugarcoat it at all. Right now, he was fighting for his life. Naturally, his usual absent-mindedness had receded. Okay, but why? I don't really remember. Although he looked away as if he didn't want to say it, he answered honestly. Somehow, Aoko found it a little painful. More importantly, I feel really sick all of a sudden. Is it because of that red light? Yeah, it was a type of magecraft called the Gander shot. It's a Scandinavian curse. I'm fine since I have the circuits, but for someone like you with no way to resist it, it looks like the effect is instantaneous. Oh, it doesn't affect you? That's good. Then the only danger is from those arms. Seeing his relief, she grit her teeth and bit her tongue. Yelling at him here would be useless anyway. But most of all, she felt if she said something, if she said what was bothering her out loud, none of it would matter anymore. That's right. I just need to watch out for those, and I'll be fine. That thing's not so tough after all. It didn't seem like she was lying. Under normal circumstances, beating that thing wouldn't be a problem. But due to her shameful lack of awareness, her circuits had been tampered with, making her even less impressive than her opponent. Right now, she had no way of attacking. All she could do was wait for her opponent to run out of magical energy, which thanks to that perpetual curse engine, that would never happen. The chase wouldn't end until one of them died. It's exactly the same position I had Sojourn in earlier, she noted sardonically. She glanced over at her right arm. To think that she would be in this mess even though her magical energy reserves were still more than half full. It must have been her punishment for hunting Sojiro with such relish. With a joke, I guess that there's a god. What a joke! I guess there's a god after all. She gripped her under her breath and switched her train of thought. Griped. On the one hand, she had the fuel but couldn't use it. On the other, that killing machine would chase her forever with its inexhaustible power source. In which case, the course of action she would take was all too clear. She just needed to go back to normal. Aozaki? Sorry, my mind was so somewhere else. Let's see. Found it. Hey, Suzuki. See that side passage over there? Huh? No matter how she looked, all he saw was a wall. To begin with, this floor had only left turns and she was pointing to the right. There's a way back down to the first floor at the very center of the maze, but you can't use it because I destroyed it. There's a nasty little trick here, though. If you look closely, there's actually a right turn. It's a hidden path reserved for the best of the best. From there, you can find a shortcut downstairs. It's a little selfish, but I want you to go through that way on your own. She turned her back on him and started walking away from the escape route and toward the long corridor toward the pursuing puppet. Since that thing is indiscriminate, I have to destroy it here. It's okay if a magus fights another magus, but recklessly dragging normal people into the fray is forbidden. I'm its objective, so no matter what happens, you should be fine, right? If she won, the puppet would be destroyed. If she lost, its mission would be complete and it would shut down. Either way, as long as they parted ways here, Sojiro could stay out of it and survive. That's what she was saying. Her manner was attached like it was somebody else's problem. With a little luck, you'll make it all the way out. So, see you tomorrow. Even Sojiro could tell she was just bluffing. But by the time she thought to stop her, she had already disappeared around the corner. Well then. I'm royally screwed, huh? Aoko grumbled to herself. The difference in quality between this puppet and the one she defeated 2 years ago was staggering. Sorry, I was just looking at my phone. An auto-incanting perpetual motion engine was rare enough, but on top of that, it had those ridiculous extending arms and Gander projecting crystal eyes. If it were put to market, it would net 100 million yen easily. However, so 100 million yen would be $1 million. However, that was only considering its value as an antique. In an actual battle, even better to mobilize a cheaper, more suitable for fighting. To use such a high-class good as a tool for murder, Its master must be uncommonly twisted. What the fuck does this mean? Vivius insomnus. Vivimus insomnus. Okay, wait. Let's Google Translate this. We live in sleep. We live in a sleep. We live in sleep. Solitari. It's Latin. Solitari. Putris. I'm translating. I'm trying to translate it now. In Pharos. Solitary. Solitary sputtering into hell. Hodie. Hodie. Today is deceased. I died on this day. Okay, I died on this day. Et mea. Natus die. I died on this day, and I was, the day I was born? What the fuck? I died on this day, the day I was born. Te obire. I personally. Okay, so it was like, it's kind of like a weird curse. But I was like, oh, I like saw I died on this day, blah blah blah. Here it comes, like a crackling music box. The automaton that animated itself with curses approached. Alko stood at the end of the 10-meter corridor and waited impatiently for it to make its appearance. She hadn't decided to settle things here, so that Sojiro could get away. Quite the contrary. She had simply determined that in her current state, her own escape was impossible. Even assuming she was able to, by some miracle, make it out of the Hall of Mirrors, that would be the end of it. With nothing but to buffer the distance between her and the puppet, she would have overtaken and skewered in a heartbeat. Out. As long as her magecraft was sealed off, she was trapped. So she had decided to fight here. Though the conditions were unfavorable, they were at least fair. There was nowhere for her to run in this cramped corridor, but at the same time, the puppet couldn't demonstrate its full speed either. It was the mechanism's only flaw. Like all the automaton of the era, it was only capable of gradual acceleration and deceleration. Set. She activated her frayed circuits. Her blood flowed and magical energy supply were unstable. Casting a spell like this would have been nearly impossible. The most she could do was crudely harden her right arm by treating it with magical energy, turning into a slender melee weapon somewhere between a hammer and a bat. It wasn't much, but it was her only option. Then all was left was the battle plan. Her weapon had been chosen for her, so she just had to figure out how to best use it. The obvious strategy was to conceal herself using the mirrors and strike from the puppet's blind spot, but that was impossible, because that puppet had no sense of sight. It perceived the world not through the visual information, but the topography of its surroundings. The principle is the same as the bat echoed location. By emitting high-frequency noise, engaging the response, it could see even in total darkness. In short, that incantation was also acting as a sensor. To the puppet, these mirrored walls were nothing more than ordinary glass. Trying to launch a sneak attack was an exercise in futility. The closer it gets, the better it can sense me. Really long-range sniping would be nice right now, especially if I could use fin shots. Gander was the simple, versatile curse that originated in Scandinavia. Those who mastered it could deteriorate an opponent's health with a mere point of a finger. As a single action magecraft, normally its effects were limited to causing illness. However, there was a forbidden technique buried deep within the art of Gander. Fin shot. A killing curse that would stop the heart of any who received it. Ugh. Electricity shot through her nerves from the wound on her back. A weaponless child versus an automaton that can inflict instant death. It was painfully obvious that she was the one who could be killed here. She was the one who would be killed here. When she thought about how she almost had no chance of making out of the situation alive, her blood ran cold. She quietly endured the usual hallucination with all of her might, clenching her teeth to keep them from chattering. But she had the distinct feeling that something was slithering its fingers around the nape of her neck. The specter behind her laughed. That alone had her on the verge of running for her life. But to make it even worse, her mental simulations of her battle gave her 20% chance of dying in the next 5 seconds. Simulation, sorry. 2 times. Sometimes her simulations were more realistic than reality. 2 times over 10 battles. She couldn't shake the image. The vision of her own corpses seemed almost real. Ugh. She saw herself dead by that puppet's curse. Her eyeballs bulging out like a pufferfish, blood leaking from her nose, ears, and mouth. 2 times. 2 times. 2 times. Even once would have been unbearable, but dying twice was enough to drive her mad. But she reined in her bulking heart. With deep breaths, she stared back at her reflection in the mirror. Remember that white night half a year ago. Compared to her ordeal at the Kuonji mansion, this was nothing. Against the Wandersnatch, the hound of white roses that appeared in deep fog, she had been killed 100 times in 10 fights. Random curse. The somber curse brought her back to reality. It was only about 10 meters away now. Nubba rounded the corner across from her. Both their figures were obscured by shadows. It didn't waste any time. Without warning, it launched a barrage of Gander in. Creating the attack, Aoko raced it with a fog of magical energy. The thick fog would disperse after a few seconds. Taking advantage of that opening, come on. The inflexible lance flew toward Aoko's face. The flexible lance, sorry. Bingo. The lethal weapon grazed past the side of her head. Since she had experienced its movement patterns earlier, she was able to just barely dodge the attack launched from her blind spot. Things would be different with a puppeteer pulling the strings, but the functions of a self-regulating automaton were limited. As long as it was simply killing a killing machine following a template that called for a specific attacks according to the situation, she could handle it. She had bet her fate on that. Now's my chance. She charged the puppet before it could retract its arm. It was a one in a million gamble, but she seized it with all her might. The scales of victory tipped in her favor. The two deaths she predicted earlier were centered around two distinct possibilities. The first was if it used this opportunity to launch a fin shot. And the second was if, like, this puppet's attack pattern grossly exceeded her expectations. Instantaneous mass transfer. Or maybe transportation. Not a second after she dodged the puppet's spear-like arm, an undefinable weight smashed into her abdomen. Oh! Gut. The head-on collision with its shoulder felt like getting hit by a rocket. But where on earth had the thrust come from? It shouldn't have the ability to launch itself like that. Her consciousness flickered from the pain. She saw through the attack immediately. It wasn't thrust, but traction? That was the secret. Instead of returning to the puppet, the arm had launched itself on the wall and drawn the puppet to it. It can do that? She swallowed her shock and desperately tried to regain her balance. Her abdomen and diaphragm had suffered a heavy blow. Her head was reeling from the impact. But the puppet was surprisingly light. Thanks to that, she hadn't suffered any serious damage to her bones or organs and had only the wind knocked out of her. She was flustered, but deep down she was still composed. 2 seconds would be enough to recover, except that that was wrong. It would take 2 seconds just to straighten herself out. Damn it, pull yourself together, Aoko. You're fine. You're just a little woozy and disoriented, that's all. You can worry about your breathing and vision later. For now, just focus on getting your body. Intellect was unnecessary. Piety was a burden. But where essence was strife, rationality was an afterthought. The source of pain was the brain. Distorted driving noises emanated from above her bed. Move legs, but which way should I? It felt like death. Grant us salvation, grant us salvation, grant us salvation. She was close enough to reach out and touch it. Likewise, it was close enough to reach out and kill her. Which meant it was a dead angle. Acting on sheer instinct, she rolled to the puppet's right. The arm was still embedded in the wall, so naturally it couldn't attack from that side. Sure of her judgment, her temporary vertigo vanished. Cast aside justice, but put piety to rest. We are ravenous beasts, that life is but ornamentation. Throw your life away. Then intelligence away, sorry. She came out of her roll and looked up, ready to strike. In that instant, her own face was reflected back at her inside this maze of mirrors. Oh, that's creepy as fuck. We already dead. The light was remarkably vivid. Claw-like lacerations scarred the walls. It must have been the puppet's trump card. She just barely managed to survive by using primitive counterspell that increased the density of the magical energy inside her body. A puppet that looked exactly like her. A powerful curse that went beyond merely stopping hearts, could even damage physical matter. It was abnormal no matter how she looked at it, but she wouldn't have time to worry about that right now. This was her chance to counterattack. As long as its arm was still stuck, it would be off balance. All she had to do was land a kick on its defenseless body, but instead her knees gave out and she fell to the floor. I am alive in slumber. Oh, I have a good idea of who it is. No spoilerino though. I am alive in slumber. I am rotting alone in the ground. Today is the day I died and was born. Now I am coming to see you. She suddenly felt nauseous and lightheaded. An unbelievable chill ran through her body. Damn it, it was leaking curses this whole time. No spoilers, dude! You're spoiling it! She noticed only too late. I'm not looking at the cover now. This puppet's surroundings were engulfed in a maelstrom of malediction. The cursed poem that animated also served as self-defense mechanism that would bring sickness to any approached. She had been continuously exposed to it ever since the puppet charged at her. Even with the circuits, her physical condition was deteriorating, just like Sojiro said. Luckily, she forced her collapsing body to roll away. It can't end here. She fled from the cursed languor with every ounce of energy she could muster. However, it wasn't a curse-born Emina she was suffering, but from a drop in blood pressure from her predicament. The position was perfect. In front of her, the automaton that shred. I have an idea, but I'm not 100% on it. Don't spoil Reno. Also, there's other people watching too, so they may not know either. In front of her, the automaton that shared her fate raised its left arm like an archer notching an arrow. Wait, that was a typo. Like an archer notching arrow? That makes no sense. That's grammatically wrong, I think. I think it's supposed to be notching an arrow. I found like 3 typos. This is the 3rd typo I found. The lethal weapon shot unerringly toward her heart. But just before it hit, "Look out!" A voice without a trace of panic cried out and yanked her out of the way. Once again, the extendable arm skimmed through the empty space. Though the puppet quickly retracted it, Sojiro took advantage of that slight opening, grabbed Aoko's hand, and ran as fast as his legs could carry him. Of typos. I'll send it to the translation team. Like an archer notching arrow. Like an archer notching arrow. I'll put it in general. It may have been fixed, I don't know. He dashed the corridors haphazardly, only stopping when he put enough distance between them and the puppet. I found like 2 before this, though. So I thought about it. It's not a big typo, but it is a typo nonetheless. Notching an arrow. It's missing an article. Oh shit. Bite-sized shampoo, thanks for the follow. Sorry to change. I don't have notifications on here. For some reason, the girl he saved looked angry instead of graceful. For some reason, the girl, instead of graceful. Still, he plowed ahead with a witty excuse he racked his brain to come up with. As it turns out, I'm going to be pretty busy tomorrow. He trailed off there, but the implication was clear, so why don't we finish up our business today? Honestly, it was more awkward than anything. Alco didn't respond. She really was furious. It had nothing to do with the fact that she couldn't understand how his mind worked. Nor was it because he came back even after she went to the trouble of letting him go. It wasn't even because she was annoyed at how he was spouting off insane lines like always. Inane? Wait, is inane a word? Oh, silly, okay. Okay. I don't know why they had to put that fancy SAT word, but you know. It was all because of that single moment. When he grabbed her hand, her mind went blank and she was completely at his mercy. To her alone, that was. That alone was unforgivable. And so, are you insane? She lashed out at him. Or maybe you actually want to die. You're just a target to me, you know. You're not going to win me over. Saving my life doesn't change anything. He nodded sagely. Yeah, you're not that nice. Tonight really rubbed that in. Oof. Somehow she was a little offended. But you're wrong. That thing isn't just after you. I think it wants to kill me too. Her sharp glare said she didn't buy it. Hear me out. Remember the entrance on the first floor? That long, narrow passage? For some reason, when I got down there, it was blocked off. I couldn't escape if I wanted to, so I had no choice but to come back. Her eyes widened ever so slightly. Not out of surprise, but out of admiration for the enemy's thoroughness. Plus, it was definitely treating me as an enemy earlier. I could tell by the way it stared at me. Well, it all happened so fast I didn't get a good look at it, but I know it was terrifying. You should be careful too. I'm sure it has a real scary face. Oh my god. It's fun. Okay, so yeah, it's funny is that because the puppet's face looks exactly like her, and so she's basically implying that her face is scary. Yeah, thanks. You're welcome anyway. I can't pretend this isn't my problem anymore. But no matter which one of you wins, I'll be killed, won't I? That's right. If it's gone as far as block off the exits, it'll probably eliminate any witnesses too. That's what I would do. I thought so. But see, I don't want to be killed by that thing. Huh? His words were firm and decisive, almost encouraging. She looked up at him. And if she finally noticed, his face was even paler than before. Hey, wait a minute. Are you sure you're okay? Well, I'm better off than if I drop a whole bottle of soy sauce. He tried to lighten the mood with a little joke, but there was no denying the fact that his forehead was soaked with greasy sweat. It must be because he got close to the puppet when he saved me. There was no way he'd be okay after barging straight into a curse that made her nauseous. That made even made her nauseous. She gnawed on her lip, frustrated by her own lack of foresight. He was always so absent-minded that she never even considered the possibility that he would do something so outrageous. So if they added Alco and like a collab, would you wail for her? Would you wail for NP5? That's the real question. Why didn't you just hide downstairs somewhere? Wouldn't that have been safer? She really couldn't understand him. You're the one to talk. But hey, there's no time to stand around and chat. I'll be catching up. It'll be catching up to us soon. He was looking toward the end of the corridor. The crackling notes of a music box had begun to drift from the deep within that mirror-lined darkness. Back on the first floor, I was thinking, even if you lose, I'll still be killed by that thing. In which case, it's in my best interest to do something about it. Because while I cannot handle the doll by myself, I can handle you, Kick. Nasu releasing full games? Nani? Not wailing for waifus. Feels weird, man. What are you getting at? She asked a question she already knew the answer to. It was to test the extent of his resolve. If he backed down, if he wavered even for a moment, she would kill him where he stood. A proposal. I help you take the thing out, in return you let me go. Didn't I already tell you, helping me won't change my mind? And what could you even do? I'm sure you'll think of something. That's your specialty, right? It was, after all, the commander's job to make the best use of their subordinates. Besides, asking someone who can't grasp the situation and doesn't know the difference in ability between himself and his enemy what he can do is pointless, he said, puffing out his chest. He was right, of course. The only one who knew that what both he and that automaton were capable of was her. All he could do was try his best to do whatever she told him to do. In other words, he had been given up on thinking, but at the same time, it meant that he had accepted his own helplessness and decided to trust her wholeheartedly. So you're saying you'll follow my instructions to the letter? That's right, and I want you to know that I'm not doing this out of a sense of duty or obligation. It's just that neither of us has a chance on our own, so it's better if we work together. It isn't goodwill or kindness. Think of it as a transaction. His eyes sparkled. It was bartering in its purest form. Seriously? He must have learned this from that idiot Tobimaru. Though she'd never show it, she could almost smile. She'd been completely had, true, but apparently there were times in this world where defeat didn't taste so bad. Honestly, honest pay for honest work. Huh, makes sense. Yeah, I hate to say it, but... After a moment, her shoulders relaxed and she breathed a sigh of relief. Then, as if her worries left her, a vaguely wicked smile spread over her face. That suits me just fine. She threw the trust that she had she threw the trust he had shown her right back at him. I'm not going to die. I'm not going to lie. What I need you to do willingly will probably be pretty tough. With that, Alko had quietly started running, doing her best to muffle the sound of her footsteps. Only Sojiro remained behind at the center of the whirlpool on the second floor. To tell the truth, I still have an ace up my sleeve. Even I think it's overkill, but well, we were late getting here, and I got a little carried away. It's something you were planning to use on me? She cheerily answered yes, then went on to explain her final trump card to Sojiro, who was tilting his head in confusion. I engraved a bunch of ignition formulas on the spot on the support posts in the basement. By triggering the one in the central pillar, it'll start a chain reaction that activates the rest. And since I made them before my circuits were jammed, as long as I directly inject my magical energy, they should still, well, they'll go off. The fact that she was avoiding putting it in concrete terms was a little unsettling. Awazaki, when did you mean go off? Could you please confess as clearly and simply as possible just how much you're intending to blow up? What exactly am I getting myself into here? It's just insurance, see? I figured if I ever lost track of you while we were playing cat and mouse, all I had to do was blow you up along with the building. That's all. Monka S. She laughed in embarrassment, scratched her head. It's always best to be thorough, right? That's too thorough no matter how you look at it. In the face of such cruelty, he forgot himself and protested from the bottom of his heart. What's the big deal? Thanks to that, we have a way to fight back now. So it's fine, right? She dashed through the corridors at full speed, grumbling something that would render her cooperation with Sojiro null and void if he had been around here to hear her say it. The strategy was simple. Aoko would take the hidden passage on the right and make her way down to the basement while avoiding the puppet. Then, when she arrived at the central pillar, she would inject her magical energy into the formula and escape. Once the formula activated, it would take at least a minute for the breakdown to spread through the entire Hall of Mirrors, and another minute after that for the building to collapse. It would be a tight schedule, but since she had memorized the maze's layout, she should just barely be able to make it out. She figured the barrier the puppet had placed over the entrance would have been blown away by the successive explosions from the pillars. But even if that was stronger than she anticipated, there was no way she could hold up once the building itself began to bend. So as long as she could activate the formulas in the basement, Sojiro's escape would be assured. Which left the most important part. That automaton was at a disadvantage in this obstacle-ridden Hall of Mirrors and couldn't demonstrate its full speed. If it wasn't near the center of the second floor, then when the destruction started, it would be swept up in the collapse and reduced to scrap. In which case, the problem was keeping it here until she could make it to the basement. Keep it there. I'm counting on you, Suzuki. Just keep it busy for 3 minutes or so, and I'll be fine. If you could keep his attention until she could activate the formulas, then that would be perfect. Failing that, if she could at least lure it to the first floor lobby, the plan would go off without a hitch. She knew full well how much danger she was putting him in, but given how long he was able to run away from her, his luck and leg strength were nothing to sneeze at. Yeah, as long as it's just running away, then maybe he'll actually be able to pull it off. As she ran through the hidden passage in the maze, Aoko inadvertently found herself pinning her hopes on Sojiro. On the other hand, with no way to hear what Aokizaki was saying, Sojiro was preparing for another frantic chase. He used his own special method to still his pounding heart. The important thing was that he'd stay calm. The strategy itself was simple and easy to execute. Aoko's instructions had been short and to the point. You'll want to keep a distance of around 10 meters between you and the loop around, and loop around 3 or 4 times as slowly as you can. Keep track of the hidden passages by counting the panes. From here, they're at the 6th, 3rd, 7th, and 2nd counterclockwise. If you use those, you shouldn't be in too much danger. In short, it was a circular marathon. As long as you stayed far enough away that it only tagged with its arms, but close enough that it could keep up, it should keep chasing around indefinitely. Still, even if it was a straightforward job, he was putting his life on the line as bait. On top of that, there was that ridiculous bit at the end about running as fast as he could to the exit when the building started to shake. This isn't just pretty tough, Aoko. Nervously, he stuck his head out around the corner. The sound of the music box drifted from the other end of the corridor. First things first, he had to get its attention. After that, he would duck through the shortcut on the right and start this loop-shaped game of tag. It's here, he readied himself. Just a little bit closer now. Dreading the attack that could come at any moment, he went over Aoko's instructions again in his head, but... Huh? Now that he thought about it. Where was that first hidden passage again? Was it at the 3rd pane, the 6th, the 9th? No. None of it sounded right. He had it down pat just a second ago, but now his head was swimming in. Suddenly, he realized that the pressure from his pursuer had started to move away, noisily and with alarming speed. Oh my god. What? Uh-oh. There were no words to describe what he saw. The puppet, which until then had taken the form of a beautiful girl, abruptly underwent a bizarre transformation, and turned back to follow its true target downstairs. Hey, no, wait, that's not good, he muttered at a loss. There wasn't even a time to regret his failure. The puppet had already vanished without a trace. I'll help you out, just please let me go. He said that. But in the end, he wouldn't have been able to do anything. So what now? Alone again, he worriedly addressed the darkness, waiting for an answer from Alko that would never come. Oh shit. Alko's fucking screwed. At the same time, as she arrived at the first floor lobby, Alko accepted what had happened. There was no need to strain her ears. Even at the height of its glory, this attraction had never known a sound like the one echoing through it, and now. It was a hopeless noise, like a horde of monstrous hedgehogs scraping with the mirrors as they closed in. That slacker. 3 minutes? That wasn't even 10 seconds! He called that buying her time. Considering the miracle he pulled off running away from her, she'd expected better. Multiple footsteps, so it switched to a multi-legged formation, huh? Sound reverberated from several sources. If she had to guess, you'd say it was from the giant six-legged spider tearing through the corridors. More like an ant, if it's 6 legs. There's no wonder the enemies, that the enemy's movement speed was comparable to before. The perception of surroundings through echolocation was particularly useful in the dark. Compared to humans who relied on sight, the automaton was several times more adept at navigating this mirrored labyrinth. The only reason it had been able to catch up earlier was because two-legged locomotion didn't suit it. However, with the stability provided by numerous legs, its speed would far exceed that of any man. What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? Her thoughts flew in disarray as she tried to formulate a new plan on the fly. The only thing she knew for sure was that the outcome of this battle would be decided by her next move. If she kept standing there, she would be overtaken in a matter of seconds. Even in her current condition, the barrier blocking the entrance would be easy enough to neutralize. All she had to do was disrupt the magical energy that formed it. She wouldn't even need to cast a spell. Though she can only keep running at full speed for a little over 3 minutes. In the contest to stand with the puppet would win, no questions asked. The way she saw it, she only had 3 choices. 1, she could escape outside through the exit in front of her. 2, she could hide in the maze on the first floor, which is more complicated than the one on the second. 3, she could descend into the basement and get cornered by the puppet like a rat in a trap. As if I could even think about it. She made her decision in a flash to go to the basement. Her frozen legs filled with renewed vigor. Above, the storm was already approaching. And so, strengthening her resolve, she turned and ran into the darkness below. Alright, well, I'm probably gonna call it for tonight. My throat's kind of getting dry, and I haven't eaten dinner, and I'm hungry. So I'm gonna go eat dinner at like 12:30 at night, and I'm gonna go to bed. And we'll try streaming this again tonight, later today, and we'll try to see if we can finish up this first half. So yeah, I will see you guys later today. Peace. Let's save. Yeah, my stomach's growling. I haven't eaten dinner. But yeah, see ya. Peace.